Unipod, the podcast on all things management software.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unipod, the podcast on all things management software. And today we are with Andy Wheeler, who will take us through his journey with multi-vertical management software platforms. Thank you very much for joining us, Andy, today. And can you just start by introducing yourself and how your management software journey began?
Thank you for having me. Good to be here. Yeah, my career in management software started way back in 2002, really, I guess. I was working in a musical theatre at the time. Interesting
Nice.
background there. I used to compose music for children's theatre shows.
Oh, nice.
But I also loved IT. I loved computers. I grew up in a environment where I was always fixing machines, fixing PCs. Loved all of that. In fact, my mother had a company when I was young, and I became her IT support in my sort of late teens. So I loved software. I loved IT, and I ended up working in theatre. I loved music as well, and so one day in that year, I saw an advert for a company, and it simply said, "Do you love IT? Do you love software? And do you love arts and culture? If you do you want to come and have a job?" And I saw the advert and I thought, okay, that sounds great, spot on what I like. And
it was
a company
talking to you.
It was talking to me, exactly. And it was a company called Artifact Software, and I joined that company in 2002 on the help desk. So there I was, having been through a background in sort of working in theatre, working in venues and composing music, all sorts of aspects. I landed this role I was around, I think I was about 21 at the time, landed this role in a software company. Now, interestingly, I had actually developed my own software package before that for the venue, to doing sort of bespoke software for the venue, sort of doing ticket sales and calendar management and planning of the venue and so on. So I had an understanding of what was required, and I joined Artifact Software on the help desk, and it was great. I loved it, and I was essentially very quickly going out to see clients. So even though I was on the help desk answering support tickets and so on, which I loved, always been a problem solver, I guess, my life. I was out seeing clients very quickly. And I found myself going out to some of these amazing venues in the UK in my 20s, all around the UK, big venues in London, in Scotland, and all around, even abroad as well. And the software that Artifacts creates or develops was software specifically for the arts and culture market. So theatrical venues, theatres, museums, concert halls. They also do software for festivals, so big music festivals or artistic festivals, that kind of thing. The software does anything from calendar management, so planning the year for the venue or the museum, to planning the staff that are required to manage the events that are going on, to organising what resources you might need in the venue. In some cases, also doing very specific artistic planning software management for a particular event that's going on. So all sorts of very specific vertical requirements that are required in these venues. These are the days when you would turn up with a disk. We're not talking cloud web software. We're talking turn up with a disk. And so
I'm familiar with those days.
Yeah, okay. It was a CD, I think, by this time.
A CD, yeah.
Yeah, and you would turn up and I would get given a key to the server room, and I would go in the server room on the computer, install the software, and then I would get it running. Then I would change roles and go and meet the staff that are going to use the software and train them how to use it.
Wow.
And I would go out and spend time with them, train them how to use it. And I met so many amazing people during that time, great people, great venues. To answer your question, my career started in a different way, I guess. I sort of landed in software, and I loved that period. If I give you a brief snapshot tour of that journey, I was with Artifacts for 20 plus years. So, and during that time, having been on the help desk, I was a trainer, as I said before. I then
Sounds
moved
like you
into.
did everything from
I did a
putting
lot of
the
different
CD
roles.
into
We
the
had
customers.
a great team. It's all about teamwork, okay? But a great team that was still at Artifacts or was at Artifacts. And I was there. I was a trainer, project manager.
Yeah,
In around about 2012, moved into running the development team, so software development team. So I had all of that running. We then moved into a period where, as so many companies go through, you need to sort of rebuild or have a new version come out, whatever. So develop that software as well. And I was on the board for a long time as well as a director, software development director. And then in 2019, the company was bought by a large group. Amazing time. So at that point in time, being part of a large group, I suddenly was encountering lots of other software companies as well, meeting loads of great leaders across the world. And I became the managing director of the company in that year. So having started on the help desk and gone through that journey, or up to sort of managing the company in 2019.
amazing.
And of course, what happened in 2019, well, 2020 indeed, 2020, the pandemic. So we have great business, great venues. Of course, one of the biggest sectors that was impacted by the pandemic was the arts and culture sector.
Of course, no one,
But
the museums closed, or yeah,
museums closed, theatres closed, concerts closed. Everyone had such a hard time. I've still got a bunch of newspapers over here from that
really.
year, which are all about the challenges that this sector was going through, all of the issues, all the fundraising that was going on for the sector, all of that happening.
And you keep the physical newspaper?
I kept the newspapers really important
Oh,
because
wow.
that was a really huge challenge for the sector, a
Mhm.
sector that I love. So anyway, we carried on running. We supported clients during that period as best we could. And then my journey, I guess, coming right back to now, beginning of last year, being part of a group, I moved over to run another company in the group in a different sector in PropTech, property management and accounting software, a company called Grover Systems. So I don't know if that gives you a bit of a background to me. It's an interesting career, I guess.
Yeah. Sounds super interesting. I already have a list of follow-up questions when you're ready.
Great. So yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the advert that you saw because it was really spot on. And I'm curious to hear from you if you think that the experience that you had and the passion that you had towards the vertical, towards arts and museums and venues and all that, was it
yeah.
a big contributor to your actual work then when you developed or helped develop with a team this management software for this specific vertical? And do you think it's required to have this field experience when you're building a management software for a specific vertical?
So I don't think it's required, but I do think it helps. So I
Hmm.
think that certainly for me during that period of my career, the passion, in fact, lots of people that work at the business all the way through the period of time had a real passion for that industry. And I
Hmm.
have to say, it's a magic industry to work to be part of because it's so core to so many people's lives, arts and culture, and all that. It's such a core part of a community of society of everything. So the answer to your question is yes. I think it's a great thing to have passion for the industry, and I certainly did. It's not a requirement though, and lots of people indeed have come through. I've seen lots of people come through in roles through that period that perhaps weren't from the sector or specifically thinking about a passion for the sector, but still loved what it did and had some great skills and experience they could bring to the company.
Yeah.
I'm a true believer that diversity in companies is such an important part. If you can build a team where you've got people from all different backgrounds, different ages, different groups, different beliefs, different thoughts, all of that huge diversity, it creates a massive pot of innovation. And so that I think, yes, of course, having a passion for the industry is great to have. And I've got to say that the founders of the company, the founders of Artifacts, absolutely came from that sector, and the company was started back in the 80s originally,
Oh, interesting.
and really came from that.
And I believe that since since your journey started, you also had the chance to bring new people to the company, if I'm right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
like, is it a factor when you talk to someone if they love art and culture, if they have experience in this sector? Is it something that you thought
So
about?
it was never a requirement. Again, it wasn't
Yeah.
something we said you have to come from the sector. It certainly has it certainly supports it. It certainly makes a difference. But in certain roles,
Hmm.
if, for example, you're the person going to the venues and you're talking to the venues and you're training them on software, if you've got a real understanding of what they're doing, what their purpose is, why they exist, what their challenges are, if you've got a real understanding, of course that helps. I remember a story once years ago. Somebody said to me they were developing software for schools, managing schools and classrooms, all sorts of aspects, and they were looking for they employed a trainer to be part of the team to go and train the schools. The story essentially is that this particular trainer knew loads about the software, amazing.
Hmm.
But when you're actually in the school, talking to the teachers, talking to the teams in the school, because there was not much understanding of how the school would run, there was a bit of a missing part there.
Yeah.
So having that knowledge certainly helps, for sure. But again, we employed people from all different backgrounds. Not everyone was from the industry at all. And of course, now I'm at Grosvenor Systems, which is completely different. And my background's not in property at all. So I'm running a company where that's a completely different sector for me.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, because I think on the one hand, it's very, it's an added value, like you say, to have experience with the specific sector, but having both of the expertise, like in the passion towards software and towards art combined, is something that is probably not so easy to find. Yeah, lucky you. You had this experience and this advert that just clicked for you exactly. But it's pretty like different worlds, and you try to put them together. So
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. But what I learned during that period, of course, all of our careers are about learning. We're learning all the time. We're developing all the time. What I learned during that period was so much about diversity, teamwork, dynamics in teams, innovation ability, all of that happens. And I was able to transition, therefore, over to an entirely different sector
Yeah.
and running a different company. And
Yeah.
even though I don't have that background now in property software, actually that's a it's not a hasn't caused a challenge, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. And so your journey with management software began, as you said, like more than 20 years ago. How was the competition in that area back then? Were there any other management software companies for arts and culture and venues, or was it something new to the industry? And how was it to educate the market on the platform that you have? Did they have something else and you helped them transfer to your management software, or was it something completely new for the museums?
Yeah. And when the company was started, I think it was really in a niche market. The software, like so many management software systems, was created for a very specific need. Um, the founders actually built it themselves for their own need, and then began, because they were in the industry, began to
They
sell the
had a
software
museum or something?
they didn't they were doing they managed artists, so they
Ah,
managed artists, so it was a slightly different take on it, but it moved into um getting running in museums and festivals and so on. So they were in the industry, and so it was a niche market, very new. Even when I joined, I mean, we're talking then back in the late 80s, but even when I joined in the early 2000s, there were still venues running their entire venue on paper diaries.
Yeah,
You would,
that's yeah,
you would
I
turn
can
up and there'd be
imagine.
a huge paper diary on the desk. So to answer your question, yes, there was a gap in the market when the company was started, and a great opportunity then to grow the business, which the founders did. Of course, when like any industry, there's always going to be competitors coming into the marketplace. You've got to keep on top of that and see what's coming out. My belief, I mean, Artifacts particularly, I'll talk about Grosvenor as well soon, but Artifacts particularly had built a really great, strong name and brand. Integrity was huge, strong brand that had been built, which meant that um, it was able to continue growing throughout the life of the company. But for sure, there's always competitors coming into the marketplace. To keep an eye
Yeah.
out for that.
And did you have also experience at the time doing some marketing? And do you have like some advice on that, or were you more focused on the software and the training?
So funny you say that. So the only area of the company I hadn't really worked in directly myself throughout that period was sales and marketing, until I became MD, and then of course
You do
you're part of
everything.
sales. Of
Yeah.
course you are. But I had worked very closely with sales and marketing throughout the period, and I'm a true believer as well that in a software company, particularly an SME, vertical software, everybody's part of sales and marketing. Really, you've got to support the sales and marketing from every angle.
Hmm.
Um, so um, I I believe that central to all of that is a real clear, true brand. If you can really tell the world what your brand is, what the values are of the business. Um, if everyone's able to do that in the company, then that's going to support sales and marketing for sure. But I would be on demos with the software with the sales teams over the years, of course, and support them in that in various ways.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, of course. It's a team effort to
Mm.
do it. So from your software experience, can you give us an example of a feature or something that is special about this management software that is relevant only for this vertical, or actually do you think everything is applied to every single vertical? And
No, I believe, again, if we look at Artifact software, that software was um, everything about it was developed very clearly for those types of venues and environment. If we get very niche, then we're talking about either managing the travel for all of the artists that are performing,
oh, wow.
organize all of that, managing that within the system, anything from flights to taxis to hotel rooms, all of that within the software, managing all of the logistics of what's going on for that event can be managed in the software. Not everyone does that, but you can do. That's very niche environment, I guess, within that
And
piece of software.
And how specific do you go? Because usually when you want to develop a feature, I imagine that you want it to be applied to as many customers as possible. But then when you develop something like this, it sounds like only very specific companies will need it. So um, how do you balance between that?
Yeah, of course, when you're growing a software company, you're initially you're doing what the customer needs all the time. You're continuing whatever required developing it. I mean, in fact, back in the day, sales teams would be out, come back and say, we need the feature. And we would develop the feature and it would go as quickly as possible. So it's really for the client and so on. As you grow the client base, of course, you'll then needing to manage a much wider range of input into what's being developed. So you've got to consider, is this particular feature is it going to be specific to that client? We
Hmm.
still consider doing it, or as you said, is it going to be a wider reach? And I don't think there's like a right or wrong or a yes and no, black and white way of describing it, but I think you consider when to put it into the roadmap. So if it's
Hmm.
very specific for that, how important is it for that client? We've had over the years, we would employ developers or teams specifically to do a project for a client as well. And then, of course, you've got to decide, does it go into the main product? Is it going to be left as a plugin or a custom module that
Hmm.
client has, which so many management software do, or is it going to be open to everyone?
Why would you decide to put something aside for a specific client and not let, even the opportunity for other customers to use it?
Always the opportunity for sure, but you might consider to make it a module that can be switched on and off. So if you got a switch on it, you can monetize it as well. You could monetize that for a wider client base and say, actually, if you want that specific feature, there's a additional charge for that module or that plugin that could
Uh,
be available, for
it's,
example.
uh, it's like part of the pricing structure if it's
It could
something
be,
that
yeah. I mean,
I see.
certain features were specific for particular clients, and you just did that. But for sure, as you say, you might want to include features in the main core product for a wide range of clients and have it
Hmm.
switch on, switch off.
Yeah.
Similar with Groves. Cool.
No, no. So you said there are a lot of factors when deciding to develop something or not, and it depends like on what stage you are in the company and the employees and the capacity that you have. But sounds like at least at the beginning you really want to deliver as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and similar when you hear from different companies, similar thing. When you're a small company growing, of course, you're doing everything you possibly can for everyone that comes along. Eventually, you have to get to a point where you're actually capacity planning, sprints and cycles on releases and all sorts of aspects. And we created a product council, so you would have a council that would exist within the company with stakeholders from around the company,
Mm.
and they would meet on a quarterly basis, every 3 months or whatever, um, to decide what's next. So you're always getting input from sales, getting input from support, getting input from marketing. Very important to get input from marketing. Sadly, an area that could easily not be, but really important to have marketing in there. And obviously development as well, because there's
Why do
plenty
you
things.
emphasize marketing?
Because marketing historically, I've read so much. Even yesterday, I was reading a post about how marketing traditionally, back in the day, perhaps wasn't seen as being a department that should be really central to a business. But
Uh-huh.
actually, it absolutely should. Marketing is
Right.
such a huge part of what companies do, that
Interesting.
having that input into the products plans is really, really important. And development, of course, as well, because the development team will always know what things they must do in the software to continue its security aspects, or those kind of things need to happen as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're always
Okay.
thinking about different aspects.
Nice. Okay, having these councils sounds like a product road mapping, like what product road mapping looks today, more or less.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's part of that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, so let's go to the acquisition. You said it was in 2019, right, by the group?
Yep. Yep. So Artifacts was acquired. We're part of a large group, and so I then moved to a company called Grover Systems last January, a few years following that. So I'm now part of a new company, new sector.
Interesting. And the movement, it started from getting to know people in the group. How did the acquisition of the group really help this move? Was
I think when you're part, so being a software company on your own, I guess, individual software company, you're constantly trying to look out for what competition there is, what the market's doing, all of that. When you're part of a group, what we found was we got a lot more input from different businesses. You could um, um, collaborate with lots of different leaders as well. So do lots of work with other leaders, different sectors, different software that I would never have done before. So that's been great. And for me personally, like the opportunity to then go and run another company within the group has come from that. environment.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about the advantages of being part of a group and getting to learn and more from other leaders in the group, and how was that experience for
Yeah,
you?
I think absolutely. So um, I think one of the biggest benefits of being part of a group of companies, as we are now, as I am part of now, is you get so much input from different businesses, different software verticals, different
Mm,
challenges that happen across it, and also you begin to realize how many similarities there are,
mm,
how different software verticals all have the same or similar challenges. It's quite
mhm.
interesting again listening to your podcast myself the last few weeks and listening to some of the other leaders talking about their businesses and just aligning to everything that's being said. Like you can just
Amazing.
identify with all of it. Similarly, within a bigger group, you get that input, that collaboration, which is really really helpful, really important for sure.
Yeah. And so in that group, you were able to find more management software companies. Is it like something specific to that?
Yep, yeah, all of it. A vertical
Amazing.
market software companies in management software. Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the property and accounting software.
Yep.
And what was the main problem or project that you started working on when joining this new company?
So Grosvenor Systems, where I am now, it was created again, founded back in the 80s, and similar to Artifacts in that kind of journey, in that it
Mm-hmm.
had built software that was really niche within the industry, really strong software. Lots of the clients have been with the company for a long time because it does what it says on. We often use a term, it does what it says on the tin. It does it really well. What it does really well, and that's an important part of management
Good
software.
marketing.
Well, it's also a really important part of management software. If you want to keep clients, and let's be honest, one of the biggest parts of growth is keeping clients,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you've got to it's got to do what it needs to do well. Growth Systems, great software, good client base, great team in the business. So when I joined the company as MD last January, my objective or my plan was to, on joining the company, was to really look at where the company was going for the future. Innovation. Yeah, we're living
Mm.
into time of AI. Of course, it's a term that's very much part of our lives now. Innovation, cloud. Doing a lot of work to build um, additional products that could be used with software in the cloud, and also looking at AI and how that could be really supporting our clients.
And is there a reason why you mention it's a property and accounting management software? Because usually I think, well, I spoke to accounting management software companies for accounting firms and then to property management software leaders. And I imagine that the accounting is only part of the property management software features. But is there a reason why it's
Yeah, what we found in the years, even before I joined, of course, but even since I've joined, what we understand is because it does end to end management,
Mhm.
accounting, all integrated, all within one product. It's one central store of data, and that makes such a difference to clients. I think having one real core central management system, management software, and so there are systems out there that would do property management that will integrate with other finance packages and have
right?
that. Of course,
Okay.
there are,
As a
and
third
well,
party integration.
absolutely, there are software companies that do property management that integrate with finance software.
Okay.
But we Grove has always done this fully integrated end-to-end package, and we
Mm.
found that the market really responded well to that and still does. It's part of what we really sell.
Okay, got it.
But definitely, I'm glad you identified that. It is definitely property and accounting management all in one.
Okay, nice. So it's property and accounting and everything else all in one.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and
you've got a central store of data about the properties, about the tenants and the suppliers that maybe are doing maintenance on the buildings, all sort of aspects, but also managing rent and rent management and service
Oh,
charge management and all of that integrated within the software. There's also a suite of online portals. So, for example, you might want tenants to be able to see what's going on in the building, their part they're in, or be able to log if they've got a maintenance issue with their property. They can do that online on a portal. That's all there as well.
so it's
And
not
we've
only
just
for
recently,
the property owners, it's also for the clients and the people who rent the. So there are a
so
lot of, yeah.
the core software would be for the property management and the accounting teams and all of those people. But but
Hmm.
there's a whole realm of people around that that want to connect with the software. So there's
Uh-huh.
portals for suppliers, there's portals for tenants, there's different ways that other people can connect with the software, and the data flows straight back into the main core system.
Okay, got it.
We've just recently released also a BI platform, online uh, uh, business intelligence platform for analyzing data from the main core software.
Hmm.
And the reason we've done that is because we believe that it's really important way to ensure efficient management of the properties that are being managed in the software, which helps everybody. If you're managing a portfolio of properties in a real efficient way, that's going to help both the staff that are doing that and the tenants that are in the buildings. And that's what we've done there.
Interesting. And so this BI platform, does it also integrate with AI capabilities that give you recommendations, like on what to do, or did I go too far
So
away?
that's what well, one step at a time. We're working on, yes. At the moment, the BI platform pulls data from the system and it presents it in a graphical format, bringing insights directly to the
Uh-huh.
users of software. And then, of course, AI, as you mentioned just now, we're now really working hard on pushing forward with AI capability as well. We've presented to our client base in the last few months some ways in which we're going to bring AI to the forefront of what they use. We're true believers that we've got to make sure that the AI functionality is doing something really good for the client, because AI can do so many things, but actually making sure it's the right thing that they need, that still exists. Right? You still got to do what a client needs.
Yeah.
We've been
And I
doing a
think
lot
it's
of work.
something that comes up a lot in the episodes, like the how to use AI. So it can be a buzzword that is just, thrown out
Yeah,
everywhere, but it can
yeah,
also be a tool that you really respect and use wisely. So yeah, I can
yeah,
relate and understand.
yeah. AI has to be the AI technology. I've been doing a lot of learning myself, a lot of research on this. The technology is incredible. Obviously, we're going through a huge change in our lifetime, really, with AI. But it's so important that we use it, as you say, wisely, because the reality is the same challenges for clients, the same issues still exist. As in, you still want to make sure you're developing software that is supporting what the clients need, not just giving AI for AI's sake. It's got to do
Yeah,
something
yeah,
really
yeah.
useful.
Exactly, exactly. So one thing that came up to my mind is that from talking to other property management software leaders, something that is a big focus is the compliance around rent and payments and money flowing. Is it something that you also find as a challenge? And how do you deal with it in
Yeah.
your specific market?
Well, I think it's really any software that's holding data about um, potentially people and CRM data, monetary data, anything like that, you've got to be compliant. You've got to invest heavily in um, security, best practice, quality, all of that. We have standards. ISO 27001 is a security standard.
Uh,
Both companies um, uh, invest heavily in that.
mhm.
In the UK, we have a certification called Cyber Essentials, which essentially um, means that your company is investing in cybersecurity. So we do that as well. Every staff member in the businesses does security training every month on data security, GDPR, on all sort of aspects.
And when you compare between the verticals that you come from, do you feel that compliance and security is something that in the property sector you needed to focus more on than with art, museums, venues vertical?
Don't think it's necessarily, certainly between these two verticals, I haven't seen a specific difference in that respect. What I will say is that the size of client, depending on the size of client, there may be a different take on it. If
Okay.
it's a large client or prospect you're working with, then they're going to be looking for those high levels of security and compliance. Perhaps the smaller ones don't even know they necessarily need to look for it.
Yeah.
We offer it to everyone. We do
Mm-hmm.
it as a standard, but I think it's payments, of course. With payments, you've got to have obviously PCI compliance, and all of that's really important, particularly if you're managing throughput of currency.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't necessarily seen the difference between the two sectors.
Interesting, because naturally I
Yes.
would think that rent and property needs to be much more compliant, but actually the size of the business sounds like when you think about it again, then the size of the business makes much more sense. Did you see any other difference? Because the similarities between the verticals are quite clear, I would say, and management software is, here to really help businesses, SMEs grow in an efficient way with software tools. But is there any difference or something that you saw when moving from one vertical to another?
So I think back on the similarities first, what I will just to re-emphasize is that software companies, from what I've seen, management software companies have, great service. You need to offer great service. You need to, be observing your clients and getting out and seeing clients and seeing what they need. You've got to be developing secure, strong, um, innovative software continuously. You've got to
Hmm.
be, and you've got to keep telling your clients about it. I've seen so many instances where clients don't know you've developed something. You've got a new release because their staff are changing all the time as well. So, because their staff are changing all the time as well. So keeping telling clients what you're releasing, what's going on is really important. Every software company must do all of those things. To answer your question, is there a difference between the sectors? There's a difference in the type of client, I guess. The people that are actually using the software, perhaps on the
Yeah,
the end users.
the users.
If you're in a theatre, a venue like a arts venue, a museum, perhaps the users, some of them might be the people that do the stage management. And they're very arts based mindset,
Funny.
but they need to use the software as well. In the property sector, the accounting teams come from different backgrounds. I think the most important thing, like with any interaction between people or companies and people, knowing who you're speaking to and knowing how to relate to those people is really
Hmm.
important. Doing your background research, doing your preparation for those interactions is key for building relationships.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, selling software is about, in many aspects, certainly in niche management software, it's building relationships. It's key with clients.
Yeah, and I think it's important to emphasize that because there is this conception that software is something that you plug and play with, and you just download it and it works. But especially with management software platforms that really need to help the business, there's a lot of personal interaction involved and keeping the communication alive. And it's something that you probably heard from listening to other episodes, but it comes up in every single vertical. It's not something that it's really something that helps in the critical
Mm.
life of a business. It's not something you can just plug and play. It's really like an investment that both parties should consider.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think,
Some software, of course, If you're selling to thousands and thousands of users, of course, you're not going to have quite the same intimacy, I guess, with clients. It's a different aspect. And something I have to look at in running companies is the mix between product innovation, client intimacy, and operational efficiency. And you got to keep looking at how to mix the staff up to make sure it's right. Sometimes you've got to be really, really on top of client intimacy. During the pandemic, in Artifacts, we had to be really on top of that, really close to clients all the time. Other times, you've got to be innovative. You've got to
Yeah.
be really, I mean, obviously, it's a mix all the time. You never stop at one, but you might rebalance it sometimes.
Nice. Okay. So there are like periods of time where you invest more in the relationships, like you said, and there are times where
Correct.
you invest more in innovation and creating new stuff and new announcements. Andy, we are coming towards the end of this episode, and I want to ask you one last question because a lot of management software leaders are struggling or experimenting, let's call it, with the pricing. And there's also a feeling of a change in the way management software platforms do pricing. Some would say it feels like a race to the bottom, but not necessarily. So if you could share with us a little bit more about your experiment with pricing. Maybe you can share your thoughts on free trials or freemium models, freemium features. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So pricing, first thing I'll say is I think pricing needs to always be connected with value.
Mm-hmm.
The
Nice.
pricing and value are central to each other, right? They're core to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding your product or indeed your service, because the software companies were selling services as well as software, of course, training, consultancy, that kind of. Always understanding what your value is, what your perceived value is. What do the clients think your value is? Because that's where you've got to really get the value in. And I think that if we think about pricing, what can happen in software companies is that you may start with the pricing model. An artifact, for example, is a license. The client bought a license and then they paid a maintenance fee every year to keep support going. Of course, that model's not really so much around now with the advent
So
of.
it was a license on top of the subscription.
So you bought a license, perpetual license. You owned the software, and
Oh,
then you
okay.
paid a maintenance fee to have support for it, I
That was
guess.
before even SaaS was a thing.
Yeah, before SaaS was a thing, exactly. And then, of course, the advent of SaaS came along, and then you would sell on a subscription basis,
Mm-hmm.
monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever it might be. And so I think that what I'm saying there is whatever your model is, whether it's licensed, whether it's SaaS, whether it's based on users, whether it's unlimited users, whatever it might be, I'm just saying that the mix between or the balance between value and price is really important. And
Mm-hmm.
what can happen in software companies, you said it just now yourself, is that there can be times when you think you've got to get to the bottom. You've got to get your price down to the bottom to get the deals, to get the clients, to get the prospects in. All of that. The risk there, the danger there is that you begin to erode your value in the marketplace. You know,
What do
if
you
you're
mean?
selling at the lower, if you're selling into the marketplace at the lowest price you can, then you're in the marketplace in a niche vertical software company, you can begin to erode what your perceived value is in the
Oh,
marketplace.
okay. Interesting. Okay, so
And
as
so
low as you go with your pricing, it also affects what your perceived value is, maybe?
correct.
Mm.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So really, really making sure you're always engaged with clients, always engaged with the marketplace to understand where your value is really important, no matter what pricing you do. I say what
Mm-hmm.
type of pricing. In terms of the types of pricing, I think nowadays having a mix of elements that can or could be part of the pricing decisions is important to ensure that particular clients are getting the right value for the right price. So it could be number of users still, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
It could be based on a property world, the number of properties you own, the number
Mm-hmm.
of property you manage through the software. in the arts and culture world, it could be based on the number of seats you have in a venue in the auditorium. A whole
Wow.
element of aspects that can impact the price in different ways, and that means that you're building prices that are really offering the best value possible for the client that's buying that software at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and like you said, there are a lot of ways to tie between your pricing and the value. So I think maybe
But,
something
but
to yeah.
I was just going to say there's because AI nowadays, AI means that another usage of AI is to be able to analyze how the software is being used and report back
The
how that
usage.
can impact your pricing, because that can help as
Nice.
well.
Interesting.
There's a model, your listeners might like, there's a model out there for pricing of value. It's called the Bowman's strategic clock. And it's a way
Interesting.
of, again, just beginning to look at where your price is against the value in the marketplace. It's worth looking at, for sure.
How is it called?
The Bowman's strategic clock.
Nice. Okay. I'll also check it out. So it checks the marketplace or it checks the usage inside your software?
It doesn't check the Bowman's strategic clock is a model for looking at where your price is against the value. It's a model
Okay.
for just begin to think about where you sit in the marketplace, where you believe you are
Nice. Okay. So it's a recommendation that can help you understand where you can put your pricing and how to
against the value.
against the
Exactly.
value. Very interesting. And yeah, maybe the last thing I was thinking of is that you said that you can do it according to the number of users or a number of properties or number of seats. And I think that the nice part here that you mentioned and I want to highlight again is that it needs to be tied to the value and not get
No,
distracted by what the competition does and what other prices are there in the market.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. Of course, you've got to keep an eye on the competition, see what's happening, but you shouldn't necessarily let that impact on what you're doing as
exactly.
such.
Exactly. Andy, thank you very much for sharing your journey on Unipod and with the management software growing community. So thank you for your time and sharing your experience. It was a pleasure. And to all our listeners, thank you for staying with us. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.